Yeah. And we are live.
All right. And where is my. There it is. From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Factory. And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
It's time for our twice yearly American Greed Factory podcast, where we recap everything that's happened in the last 6 months in 2 hours.
We remember all the things, or we forget all the things we remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that's been. Oh, there's lots of sports stuff, even though I guess we've proclaimed to not care about sports many times on this podcast. Basketball fever has swept the nation, so I got caught up in it too. I used to watch basketball all the time, but then I just once I had to stop playing basketball because the medical bills piled up. It's like, all right, never mind.
Yeah. This dream also shall fade.
But it was real easy because Iowa had Caitlin Clark on their team, and she's completely brought a spotlight to women's basketball.
Yeah.
To the point where you know where people from other teams are. So, because last year they went to the championship and lost to LSU, and this year they went back to the championship and had to go through LSU to get there, and had to go to UConn to get there, and and then they go in the first. Then they had to go up against South Carolina, a team who was undefeated this year, and who Iowa was the only person that beat them last year. Well, I guess not person, only team that beat them last year. And so they start out, and Iowa basically plays the perfect first 8 minutes of basketball. They're up by like 15 points, and then the inevitable happens, and they lose the game because they South Carolina had a basketball team. Iowa had Caitlin Clark and a bunch of college athletes.
Which is sometimes how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what people are like arguing. There's some people arguing that like Caitlin Clark's gonna go to, because she broke basically every record. She broke men's and women's records for scoring and for assists, that's insane when you have like the scoring record and the most assist records. It's like, okay, so 50% of your offense is going through one person. But
yeah, it's like, yeah, that's most of your scoring potential is there.
which usually you'll have teams that like suck and there's just one star player and they just like let them shoot the ball all the time, and that's how they rack up points. Where it's here, it's not like, she's passing and scoring. I mean, she's taking ridiculous like half court shots sometimes just to try to like defeat the morale of the other team. Because that's like her thing, is taking deep threes. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, she declared for the WNBA, and then people are like, yeah, it's a different thing when you go to the NBA when you're playing professional women other than like 18-year-old college athletes. It's like, okay. Yeah, let's just shoot her down immediately. Yeah, she's not going to make it. It's not going to
Yeah,
translate.
I'm sure she'll do fine because this far.
um
She seems like someone who works with people. It's not just all just this raw talent and ego. So.
yeah. But yeah, it is look how many colleges there are, and they all field women's basketball teams versus there's like 12 WNBA teams. So yeah, the talent is going to be consolidated. So that will be rough when you're basically every team is an all-star team in some way or the other. So, yeah, she got drafted by the Indiana Fever, which this is their second year in a row where they got the number one pick. So, so maybe they'll turn it around this year. I don't know. I actually found out like, they were a championship team, but also I found out like, so there's the Las Vegas Aces, which they used to be the San Antonio something, maybe Aces, I'm not sure. And so they've won the championship the last 2 years, and that's been the first back-to-back championship for since the start of the WNBA. So there's been like a new winner like every year essentially for the WNBA for like the past 20 years.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it had started out there's like the Houston team, which no longer exists, won 4 championships in a row. And then I think the New York Liberty won 2 championships in a row. And then ever since then, it's been a new team every year until the Las Vegas Aces came in. Which is, so I know like the people are discounting Caitlin Clark. They're, saying like, yeah, she can't just hop in here and like change the game because there is a kind of an analog where the Las Vegas Aces have a player, Kelsey Plum, and she was like a number one scorer in college, but she's also 5'8", where Caitlin Clark's 6 foot, so I think that's kind of a difference. But um, yeah, when Kelsey Plum started in the WNBA, she kind of like got her ass kicked, but now occasionally she'll have 40 or 50 point games, so it's like, well, she figured it out eventually. But yeah, a lot of people are just hoping that Caitlin Clark comes in and just wins the championship immediately. So, which I hope so too. That'd be fun. I don't know. Um, she's like the first woman to have like her jersey being sold at like Dick's Sporting Goods.
Oh, really?
She's got like a $28 million contract with Nike, shoe contract with Nike. So now she doesn't have to go play in Europe to make ends meet because yeah, we find out like rookie contracts are only worth like the max is like $67,000.
Oh, okay.
It's like, oh yeah, that's not a lot. But I mean, also they only play like 40 games a year, so a lot of people they'll play here and then they'll go to Europe to play for another league for like the other half of the year or whatever. Which is how Brittany Griner ended up in a Russian gulag, so
Yeah.
or prison, I guess. Yeah. Which I didn't know about because I wrote up as like, has there ever been a woman that's dunked a ball during competition? It's Brittany Griner. She's the one, like basically the one of 4 women that can dunk, but she's done it
Oh,
multiple times, whereas like it's only like 1 or 2 for other people. Which I figure there'd be like, hey, what lady can like who's like a high jumper, like can they just like dunk a basketball or does that not translate? Because how high can the women's high jump, like what's the highest they can jump? But I mean, it could just
I'm
be
not sure.
um I don't know. Always the thing with that, it's not about getting up there to dunk it. It's about landing when there's people underneath you and stuff like that. I always like cringe because you'll see it all the time in the NBA where somebody will shoot a jump shot and like the defender will have like their foot like underneath their landing zone and they'll just the foot will land on their foot and they'll just roll their ankle. It's like, oh god damn
Yeah,
it.
I want to
I
see
know
that.
exactly how that feels. um uh yeah, so Iowa lost the championship and the but yeah, yeah, it went from like maybe 500,000 people watched the NCAA women's basketball to like the championship had like 14 million people watching this year, so that's quite a turnaround.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot more people.
So, um, and it was fun because like I know some of the the deeper bench of the Iowa, so like it was like okay, Caitlin Clark's gonna get drafted, but I'm like pretty sure no one else is, and there was a um, Kate Martin was the other kind of like senior player who she had some skills and she like showed some like she was kind of just a versatile player that like whenever Caitlin Clark wasn't doing something, she was there to kind of like pick up the slack, I guess. But she wasn't necessarily like the star player or anything like that. But um, she got drafted by the Las Vegas Aces like in the second round, like the second pick of the second round. So that seemed like it went from like she wasn't expected to be drafted at all, and suddenly she's drafted in the second round, which is funny because she was there at the draft um, presentation, but just there to support Caitlin Clark, and she basically got drafted out of the audience to a team. um, which is a fun story behind that, because like when they show her getting drafted, like the camera's on her, waiting to see her reaction. But I guess the preamble to that is like some producer. She was like sitting kind of in the middle of a row of seats, and the producer came up and was like, "Hey, put your phone away and move her closer to the aisle." And they're like, "Oh fuck, she's getting drafted."
Surprise.
And even though it's kind of fun, like, oh, she got drafted, this like you get deeper into the WNBA, you learn that like it's fucking brutal to get on a team, because there's only 12 spots on a team. Like that's as far as the bench goes.
Yep.
And over 12 teams, and it's like, so that means, and they drafted 3 players. That means that either she's getting kicked off the team or they're kicking 3 players off the team or whatever. It's like, so it's absolutely brutal. So no idea if she'll actually make it, but. And then I bothered to get the WNBA League Pass, which was like $36 for the year. I was like, fuck it, why not? Which I think, 40 games over 12 teams, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure I'll watch 480 games, but we'll see. So, and also anywhere the Indiana Fever are playing, they've like moved to larger venues just to accommodate Caitlin Clark.
Oh wow, okay. Really banking on that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she has to do well. But yeah, but also she won't. I mean, like her team was good at Iowa, but now she'll have like, a much taller people, more athletic people that she can rely on, and then beyond that she can start shooting 40-foot 3-pointers if she wants. So. Because that's really the thing about Caitlin Clark, is the bravery of the coach to just allow her to do that garbage.
Yeah.
Because when I played basketball, if you took half the shots she did, you would just get benched.
Yeah.
Immediately. It was like, you just threw that away. It's like, no, you're benched. Like, we can't trust you anymore.
Wasting everyone's time.
Yeah. So it's actually really brave of, I think it's Lisa Bluter's the coach, to just like let Caitlin Clark be herself and kind of take over a moment in the basketball. Like, yeah, we're going to waste this possession for a half court 3-pointer because I'm feeling it. And it's like, yeah, go ahead. Green light.
Yeah. I support you.
And then, then that got me into just like regular NBA basketball, because I really haven't been watched it for like, 10 years or so. Just kind of like every once in a while I'll tune into the finals. And like the game is so different now. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's like way, way more scoring.
Yeah.
Like it used to be like, here's your 78-86 victory, and that was a high scoring game. This shit's getting up to like 120s and 130s now.
Wow.
And it's not necessarily like, one guy scoring 100 points. It's like spread across the whole team. You'll have like 6 guys in double digits just because they're like working as a team. And that's just to lose a game. But also just like all 3-pointers, like everyone has just gotten better at 3-pointers and shooting in general. And then you just have every player is a multi-position player. There's not just someone like, I just play center. You have centers now that like shoot 3-pointers, like, and they're out on the wing, either as a distraction or a threat. It's like it's all over the place. And like the way they've like schemed their offenses, it's like almost impossible to guard people. It's like either die by this or die by that. There's no good choice now. Like they've just schemed it in a way that like you cannot stop these people from scoring. You just have to. They can only stop themselves essentially. Oh yeah, there's this one guy who plays for the Mavericks. It's like, I think it's like Luka Doncic. So I think it's like DONCINC, but there's like an apostrophe above every C. And he is the shortest 6'7" guy I've ever seen. He might be one of the slowest, exciting players I've ever seen. Everything he does looks slow, but he plays at such an abnormal pace that it just fucks with everybody. Like just
Oh, so is he like the slow turtle that wins the race?
yeah,
Just okay, he's just gonna. Everyone's trying to run ahead and cover this guy, and he's just plotting.
yeah. Or he has his own rhythm that nobody can like get. Nobody can guard him because his rhythm is just so weird. And also he's an exciting player too. He does, behind the back passes. He shoots from like 35 feet. There's this one play he did where like he poked the ball away from the guy who's defending. He goes and runs at half court trying to get the ball. He ends up like sliding to grab the ball, and then he's just like sliding on the court for like 6 feet. He just throws the ball behind his head, hits a player that's running down the court for a fast break. That player, like, he's getting trailed by a bigger guy, so he goes up for like a layup, but it actually ends up being a lob to a following player behind him. As the defender guy like tries to get that ball, he flies out of the way, jumping at it, and the guy behind him jumps up in the air and dunks it. It's like, that's fucking crazy. um,
That is wild.
and he's the number one scorer in the league. It's like it's so odd. And then you have like the guy from the Denver Nuggets. He has another Eastern European name, and he's just like the most efficient shooter ever. Like he just like 60% of everything he shoots will go in, and he's just a big tall guy, so he gets a lot of rebounds, and he can shoot 3-pointers. He's not really that exciting, but he'll just like win the game no matter what. He's just like, because they won the championship last year, so and then and they just beat the Lakers, which LeBron James might be hanging around for a few more seasons just to play basketball with his son. So
That's kind of cool.
yeah. Although his son, I think he declared for the draft, but like I don't necessarily hear to get. The only thing I know about him is that he had a heart attack.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
So I don't know how good he is, but it's like a bargain. It'll be a bargaining chip now that he's in the league, but it's just going to be because of his dad. So, hey, he could be talented. I don't know. Because I know he wants to, like, well, people are speculating that he wants the Lakers to draft him, and then he's going to, like, become a free agent to kind of, like, threaten them with that. Where it's like, if you don't draft him, I'm going to go to another team. But, of course, then that sets up the idea of another team just drafting him as a bargaining chip. But yeah, LeBron James is like one of those like litmus tests to me because he's like around my age, so it's like, oh, he's at the end of his career now. So, but also LeBron James has had a crazy career. He went to the finals 10 years in a row. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of.
That basically means he had to play like an extra 400 games compared to everybody else.
Yeah, so his career is aging in dog years.
Yeah, but but yeah, I know people won't give him credit for it because it's like, yeah, but he lost more championships than he won. It's like, yeah, but he also won a championship for every team he was at. What else? I'm trying to think. But yeah, that's basketball.
All right.
Ongoing.
Well, marijuana is going to be rescheduled to a Schedule 3 drug federally. I don't know if you've heard about this or not.
Yeah, I heard it was a Biden administration thing, but is it going to be a federal thing then?
Well, I mean, he's going to, do his instructions, I guess.
Oh. Is this like how, like, when, like, technically weed is illegal in California, but they basically don't have the police department enforce it, so, like, basically nothing happens?
No, this is more like, because right now I think it's a Schedule 1 drug, which means it's, like, viewed as cocaine or heroin or something. I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly how it all works, but this means you can like do research with it. It's considered low impact. It's not like, because I've never heard of anyone being a marijuana addict.
Yeah.
I've heard of I know people can get hooked into heroin and pills and stuff, but so yeah, no, I mean, and you can also
Now,
like
Nathan, do you think it's purely with the heroin? Do you think it's purely the feeling of it that gets them to do dangerous things, or you think once you start injecting yourself with a needle, you're like, what else can I do?
well, I think it's an overwhelming sense of euphoria, and I think for particularly creative people, it seems to really I don't know, there's some kind of vibe in them it unlocks, because for some reason a lot of musicians and writers that I like have a long rich tradition with heroin. So I don't exactly understand what it does to your brain, but yeah, it seems like once people get into it, they really like it. Of course, I've never done intravenous drugs because I don't want to become hooked on drugs. So or die from, because now it's like, well, it's mostly horse tranquilizer. It's not even really heroin.
I remember I saw some clip of some guys talking about like he was shooting up something, I don't know what it was, and then he just puts the needle in his back pocket and it's like, yeah, I'll use this again probably 2 or 3 more times. And they're like, do you use like alcohol to swab your arm? He's like, nah, just take a shower. I mean, that guy's technically still alive, but
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what kind of health problems he has. But,
yeah.
So yeah, that'll be interesting. Well, because the student loans thing failed, this will be the next thing to get the young people in.
But did it fail again? I thought they were trying to re-rack that.
It's not the blanket thing it was initially supposed to be.
Yeah.
Which would have won him a wave of support. It's very specific to certain groups and people who got loans through certain ways, or people that have been paying on them for so long and have really never made any money with their education that they'll never get out from under them. I know that there's different formats you can go through to pay for them. But it was supposed to be just a blanket thing for everyone, and that of course got shot down.
Yeah, well, the one I had was like basically what I was originally slated is if you ever had a Pell Grant at all, you basically were getting 40 grand off, which I had a Pell Grant, so it was like awesome. And then of course that didn't happen.
No, that didn't happen.
And then people look me in the face talking about like this welfare state, and I didn't go to college. Why do they deserve a break?
Yeah, I love that talk because it didn't affect me either way. Because my kids, I mean, it was. I don't think we would have got it off because I already paid for it. It's cool. Most people can't do that for their kids. So, but I didn't begrudge anyone else being able to like, oh, hell with them. It's me. It's like, okay, cool. Because if you went to trade school, you were going to get that too. I guess they were going to try to work that in, but the whole thing just got shot down in the courts. So then it became, how do we control the loan things? And then, but yeah.
I know some of the people that had
selfishness and anger that I saw on display from people was pretty amazing. It's like, really, you just have this much hatred, and because it's not like there's a lot of government like give money away to people shit I don't like. That is like, no, I like that. I'm fine with that, because that was somebody trying to do something productive.
Yeah,
this is like, I don't know, someone just sitting around smoking weed and getting money from the government, or some defense contractor having a boondoggle worth $1 trillion. It's like, well, I guess that doesn't ever work. Like, sorry, I mean that's cost us a lot more money, or what Medicare has to pay for like, because they can't negotiate for the cost of anything. They just have to eat all these costs. Like, now that's massive, like, costs. You want to talk about big money? That's trillions.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, though. We talk about, like, oh, these young people are all lazy. It's like, oh, yeah, I love that talk. Going to be the poorest generation since the what was the generation before the greatest generation? What was that called? The lost generation? Yeah, it's literally gonna be the poorest group of people. It's like, they're all lazy. It's like, no, they don't have any hope. There's a difference between laziness and just apathy and hopelessness.
No, we want them to bang their head on the wall and see that there's no reward at the end of it.
Yeah.
That way we benefit again.
Yeah. because we're never going to get old and be sick and need anyone's help, right? We're just screwing these people. Father Time will never catch up to us, will he? Well, we're going to find out. So yeah, but so this was like the second thing I think which is like, again, I'm not a marijuana user, but I don't think you should do prison time for it either. It doesn't affect me one way or another. I think it brings money into the economy. It doesn't bring the money they say it brings into the economy, because what you've done is open a door for legal weed, but then like here, when you go pay the 40 to 50% up taxes on it, it's like, oh, I'm just going back to my old dealer. I just have a card that says I can legally have this stuff now. So that's I get that. That doesn't bother me.
I don't know. I don't know how much drug costs, so like I wouldn't know either way. So
it doesn't cost. I mean, I view marijuana and liquor as kind of the same thing. It's like, I know they have different effects, and I know, but they basically, like, yeah, you're not going to get to, if you use it chronically, habitually every day, yeah, you're not going to come out of that very well. But so I think it's kind of along the same price lines. But the only thing that kind of weirds me out about weed, but I think this is just a young people's thing, is when the guys that get up first thing in the morning and are firing up a joint, like before the first cup of coffee or a shower, like those guys rolling into work. It's like, how productive could your day be? Because if I woke up in the morning and just started guzzling whiskey, it's like, I don't think this is going to be a good day. This seems to have a lot of problems baked into it. But for some people, though, I don't know.
I don't. Yeah.
But I don't think people do that long term either.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. If I don't know people who do that, and if they do that, then they can hide it. So I guess I'm like, good on them.
Yeah, I have one of those lame-o jobs where I can't do it. So, yeah. And that's fine, because I don't need to add that to. I drink plenty. I don't need to add that to my retinue. When I want to have a good time, I drink beer and whiskey, and I'm fine. I know exactly what's going to happen. There is no spaceman whiskey. It's like, this is 4 times more potent. I mean, things like that exist. It's called Everclear, and you get sicker than a dog drinking it. But so I always like to know it. Jack Daniels is a trusted friend. I know what he's going to do to me, ounce by ounce. I don't have to guess. Like, what's going to happen? But I think for people that are into it,
it's also probably way cheaper to spend a month figuring out your dosages for marijuana. For your anxiety treatment, rather than going to a therapist and figuring that out.
Yeah, that's probably true. Which I always think it's strange that people use that for anxiety, because I have had experiences with marijuana, always anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
One thing marijuana does to me, I do not have that internal chronometer, because I can usually tell you to within 15 minutes without looking how much time has passed. Once you lose that ability, I get really flipped out. It's like, how much time has passed? Oh, only 15 minutes. Why does it feel like we've been talking for 2 hours? Well, you haven't said much. It's like, okay, this is another problem here now. I don't know where I am or who I'm talking to or for how long. I've had some memorable conversations. It is fun, but it's not fun all the time.
Yeah, I always know from like the various podcasts and Joe Rogan is that there's 2 different kinds of high. There's like a head high and a body high. So I don't know if the body high or the head high was getting to you, but
it's always had the same effect on me, whether I smoke it or I eat it. I always feel exactly the same way, slightly displaced in time. And I've taken it's like the double dare. I bet you won't take those, and I'll just cram down edibles. Now I'll act like I'm, nah, it didn't really bother me. I just felt sleepy inside. I'm about to have a nervous break. This is so fucked up. But I don't do that.
Is that preferable to like blackout drunk and you have no idea what happened the night before?
No, I prefer blackout drunk.
Okay.
Again, I'm much more familiar with alcohol than weed. I suppose if I took time to invest in it, I might, but I'm just not doing that at my age. It's too old.
I haven't done either. The closest I got is I did get drunk one time, just to make a fellow Marine feel happy. So, and I didn't feel out of control because I was like, at every moment I was kind of taking toll. It's like, yep, I'm drunk. Anyways.
No, I've been pants shitting drunk on many occasions, but I did it on purpose. Nobody like forced liquor down my throat. It's like I was like, I'm on a mission, boys. Because there was one time I just spun the lid off of a bottle of Crown Royal and poured it into a water drinking glass. It was like, we're getting torn out tonight. I forget what was going on in my life. Everyone was horrified at my behavior both during and after. But a week later, I like whatever was bothering me, I forgot about it. So in that case, it worked. But yeah, it's not always a good thing to do. It's like a phase you go through, because the older you get, the harder it gets. I mean, hangovers will last me. If I got drunk like that now, it'd last for a week. I would just be slightly off. Wouldn't be 100% off or unable to function, but I would not feel well.
There's always a bunch of podcasts I listen to where it's like people my age where it's like, oh, I can't drink as much anymore. And it's like I never drank, so I just like don't know what they're talking about. All I know, this is the same people that like, yeah, I started walking a mile every day. I stopped drinking soda and I stopped drinking alcohol so much and I've lost 50 pounds. It's like, well, I can do all that same things and I never drank and I can't even lose a pound. So I wish I could do that. I have to like concertedly measure everything I do if I ever want to lose weight.
Yeah. There's pluses and minuses there. Sure.
Oh, it's all negatives for me. There's no like I stopped doing this and everything got better. There's nothing I can stop doing. I've already stopped doing most of it. So, and except food. That's the only thing.
Well, yeah, everyone's got their thing. Some people have multiple things. So. I do think it's interesting in light of what's going on the college campuses in this country that it's like, oh yeah, we're rescheduling weed. Oh, okay. That's how we're going to get the young people to vote. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been some angry protests at some of our institutions of higher learning.
Yeah. I don't know the details. It's over the Palestine and Israel, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know how much of it. I know UCLA got pretty wild because it was two groups of protesters and counter protesters decided to show up. But this isn't like, the Kent State shooting or whatever, where the National Guard's showing up and hosing the crowd down or anything. It's nothing like that. But yeah, it seems like that's a thing that's going on right now, and it almost seems organic in a way, because it's something that neither political faction in this country really want. Because the Democrats who are currently in power, like, yeah, they're supporting Israel to a point in this. But if you like vote the Republicans in, they'll just tell Israel, like, you use nuclear weapons. We don't care. I mean, there's no real win-win in this situation. So, because Trump would be like, well, do you have nerve gas? Could you perhaps use it?
Can you do some A/B testing for us?
Yeah. What if we gave you something that no one knew about, so they wouldn't know what to look for? And it's like, yeah, because I'm sure if 100,000 people just drop over dead, no one's going to suspect anything. What if Putin gave me Novichok to give to you to use?
I only heard about this on another podcast, but you know what Annie Jacobson is?
Yes.
She wrote a book recently called Nuclear War Scenario. I don't know if you've read that.
Yes, I read it already.
Okay. I heard good things about it, how it's being absolutely terrifying. So
it's one of those what if scenarios, because it's based on that. What do they call that? The Mad King scenario.
Yeah.
It's like, what if North Korea has international reach weapons?
Yeah.
They fire a 1 megaton warhead at Washington, and of course we see it coming, but the president's out of position and doesn't get away in time. And then you're in a leadership crisis. And then they launch another nuclear weapon from a submarine and hit Remember that nightmare scenario I was telling you about that at Diablo Canyon, that one on the west coast in California? Like the only American nuclear reactor that's in the Ring of Fire,
Oh yeah.
and how basically that would contaminate the entire coast. Well, if you launch a nuclear weapon at it, it's even worse than an earthquake destroying it. And then there's a third level weapon where they have an EMP weapon on a satellite that destroys our electrical grid. But the reason this is called Mad King because North Korea was completely annihilated in the retaliation.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you kill the president and everyone else is out of position, you go right into PSYOP, which that is the world-ending scenario.
Well, I heard something about like to launch a nuke at North Korea, it has to cross over Russian airspace, and that triggered another thing or something like that.
Yeah, if you cannot launch silo-based Minutemen from our bases out west. Okay, thank you. From our bases out west, if you launch silo-based weapons, they do cross over Russia, and Russia does not have good enough equipment to predict where those are going to land, or if they just decide to wait, it will destroy their effective response. Now, I don't know what submarine launched missiles because those are depressed trajectory. So I don't know if I'm sure we have submarines ringing China and North Korea.
Yeah, that's what I presume. Because that's what I don't understand about that. The way they talked about it. It's like, yeah, you can't hit North Korea without getting there. It's like, well, what if you have a sub just in the ocean there? It's like it should be able to get it. So.
Well, this scenario doesn't allow for that.
Okay.
So, I mean, they do use Ohio class submarines. They launch over 700 warheads at North Korea. But the problem is you get into this retaliation thing, and these are all assuming certain things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, yeah, that's a nightmare. So that's those like Hollywood movie 10,000 megaton exchanges, which every nuclear war is.
Well, guess who has the rights to it?
Oh, who's that?
Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, okay, good. Now, but a smart leader would, like, as soon as the American president realized, it's like, oh, and of course this is assuming none of our anti-missile stuff works, which is always the thing. All that ABM stuff is garbage. It never works. And that's what they'll tell you too, because they've only been working on it since the 80s. So if it's all garbage and it doesn't work,
yeah, well,
it either is all garbage and it doesn't work, or it's the biggest deception ever. I don't know which.
Well, I remember like 20 years ago, you told me this, like the way to imagine it, why it's impossible is like, and I think they use this analogy in the book. It's like shooting another bullet to stop another bullet.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh yeah, that's impossible. But if you see all those in Israel and Ukraine, all those anti-missile things, like they're working, not 100%, but man, they're like 90%.
Well, the problem with ICBMs in particular is they are going like Mach 17, Mach 5. What the Iron Dome is stopping, those are going 400 or 500 miles an hour.
Yeah,
that's like the terminal velocity. But I've heard, like, you always hear this stuff like from the non-proliferation crew. It's like, yeah, all that anti-missile stuff's nonsense. It doesn't work. But I always got the feeling there's a deception going on there. It's like, yeah, it might work, or maybe we did figure out how to make it work, but to avoid escalation, we're not going
just
to
downplaying it.
Well, yeah, or don't develop it at all, because everything you come up with, then we have to make spoofing missiles. Then we're making warheads with 25 warheads, or we're making missiles with 25 warheads in them, and 11 of them are dummy buses. And it's like, it creates an arms race we don't need. America, we've been doing this on the cheap. We're using the same silo-based missiles we had in the 60s. We've just kind of upgraded them a little bit, but the Minuteman was introduced in the 60s. Now the submarine stuff, we keep that pretty current. And now that we can do time on target with that, which is something Obama somehow convinced the Russians, like, yeah, let us do this, because we'll cut our arsenal somewhere else. Time on target, kiloton weapons are way more effective than the giant multi-megaton weapons, because one goes off, then another goes off, then another. There's no defense against that sort of thing. You can't bunker against that.
Yeah.
Because it's just a rapid series of Dopplering explosions. And the thing with the submarine launch missiles is basically you can launch from like 20 different submarines all at once, but they all hit the target simultaneously. Those are hard to detect, and you cannot react to something like that simultaneously. That is how you wipe out Russia or China or something, but you have to be an absolute demon to order something like that. It's like, we're going to kill, 500 million people, and hope they don't have like just canisters of bioweapons that they'll just release as some kind of dead hand thing. But yeah, the scenario in this book's scary because, again, none of the systems we have in place to move leadership around, it breaks down too quickly.
Yeah.
Now, a smart president would like, oh, there's a 1 megaton warhead heading towards Washington. Well, we can't evacuate Washington, but we can get us out of here, and we'll take the hit, and we'll make a lot more, rebuilding. We'll get a lot more political capital out of that than we will incinerating the planet. And we're also going to focus all our resources into shooting down and destroying every North Korean asset we can. Instead of like, well, we're just going to start a general war with Russia, with China, with anyone else because we have to, because of neglect or so. But you got to understand, I've read a lot of these kind of books, and they're all interesting. But there's also a subtext here that other people have kind of explained on their deathbed. It's like, look, when you're talking to journalists or the public about this, you make what's called public-facing statements. Otherwise, you're coming across like the characters in Doctor Strangelove. Because if you don't say, no, it's terrible and unthinkable, we would never do this, and you're a general of like, missile defense, it's like, you have to say that. Otherwise, you're Buck Turgidson. It's like, look, we might take a haircut. We might lose 25 million tops. We would ultimately, reach the marginal threshold for victory. But that's really how they talk. It's like, oh yeah, they can do this shit and we can lose millions of people, but we will ultimately like survive as a nation because we're willing to come at these people in all kinds of different ways. We're not, but they'll never tell you that publicly. Publicly, they'll be like, it's unthinkable.
Yeah.
But boy, they've spent a lot of time and money thinking. So, yeah, I read that book. It's interesting. Like all that stuff is interesting.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like the way they talked about it is that she kind of interviewed a bunch of people who are like kind of out of politics and then kind of picked a scenario and went with the worst one at every branch and then wrote the book on it.
Oh, yeah. Breakdown of leadership is like ever since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Once they, it came out that like, oh yeah, the Cubans had launch authority. They could just launch those things at Washington. That would have been like, that would have changed the world because they would have killed Kennedy and Johnson and everyone in Washington. And then it's like, well, we would have just fallen back to our PSYOP plan. So. Because either it's an unthinkable scenario or it's very well thought through, and you don't know which. But we've spent a lot of money deterring this more than actively plotting a victory, because there is no victory that comes out of setting off hundreds of hydrogen bombs in the atmosphere and then like trying to farm or whatever. It's a nightmare scenario. It's like you better cure cancer or something because that's what's going to happen.
We have to salt the earth. No one, if we lose, everyone loses.
Oh, they do. Well, I mean, it's. Again, the Northern Hemisphere would be a very weird place to live for a while. But I think people would find that capabilities would be destroyed very quickly. And automated responses wouldn't work well on any side. And people would immediately push for like, hey, let's talk. We're right at the brink of, we've already wrecked our economies. I mean, 5 weapons would wreck the economies of the world.
Yeah.
Just strategically placed. Just through fear alone. But then the cleanup after that shit would be, I mean, it would be insane. I mean, how many firefighters died on 9/11 from like dust from a building collapse. I mean, it was
Yeah.
hundreds of people died. Now imagine a nuclear bomb going off over New York, and people would have to clean the city up. It would have to be gutted. It's like hundreds of thousands of people would die just from cancer alone.
And
So,
I know you can look at like Hiroshima and Nagasaki and be like, well, look, they survived. They're still around. It's like these are way different bombs.
yeah, it's a whole different game there. Terrorists could effectively make bombs that size nowadays. You know, a few given ifs there, but it's not hard to imagine that modern day physicists who were dedicated to their cause, whatever it was, couldn't reproduce an experiment done almost 100 years ago. That's just plausible that they couldn't do that if they wanted. And just drive it in on a truck. You don't need a delivery system. You just need a Ryder truck and some lead sheets. And there you go. I mean, you'd have to be a complete lunatic to do something like that. Whatever your cause was would be swept away in the ashes because, I mean, look what happened after 9/11, and that didn't involve nuclear weapons. Millions of people have ultimately died or been displaced because of those attacks. So it's like, yeah, I don't think that really works out well for anyone, us or them. It doesn't, you know, no one can say we won.
Yeah, India got lucky with that bridge in Baltimore.
Was those guys from Sri Lanka?
Oh, were they? Okay, I thought they were like.
I don't know where. I thought it was Sri Lanka.
Yeah, I mean, that's off. Oh wait, no. Where is that? Where is Sri Lanka?
Yeah, because like here's India, and then there's an island like right here. Because then Diego Garcia is like over here somewhere.
Okay.
So.
I was thinking of Madagascar. That's why I was confused. That's next to Africa.
Yeah. Can you imagine being the guys on that boat though? It's just like like there's no power, and you're just sailing towards that bridge. Yeah. Like, what do we do? Holy crap! You think someone is like, go chop the rope that holds the anchor. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. We don't have any electrical power. You know?
Oh, they needed power to drop the anchor? Huh.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't know anything about how those ships work. I
watched enough of the runaway anchor videos. I thought that was a thing that you could just drop that, man, but maybe not.
I don't know if it would have helped. It's so many tons of force in motion.
Oh yeah,
It's insane.
And it knocked a bridge over. So yeah.
Well, I like the people like, what a shitty bridge. It fell over pretty easy. It's like, do you know how much force was involved? Do you know how much kinetic force was transferred into that bridge instantly?
It's basically a localized earthquake.
Yeah.
An island hit a bridge.
Indian 9/11.
Somewhere, yeah, I've said like, man, if there were people on that bridge, that we'd be invading India right now. That'd be a new 9/11. But now I guess we have to invade Sri Lanka. So
yeah, that'd be a weird like thing, like just aircraft carriers, like America responds, just invading Sri Lanka, just with assault crafts. Like, what the hell's going on? Biden's there over a banner that says "Mission Accomplished." It's like we were done in 4 hours.
Everyone's like, "What happens?" Like, we had a media blackout. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Or where was that? Was that in Sri Lanka? Was it the? Oh no, was that the? Where was that? Was it the Tamil Tigers?
They killed the Tamil. Well, they wiped out the Tamil Tigers. Yeah, that was in Indonesia.
Oh, okay. Because I remember, like, the crazy thing about that is that they had it. There was an official media blackout, and then when it was released, there was no more Tamil Tigers, and then like nobody talks about what happened because there was a media blackout. It's like, that's insane, dude.
Oh no, that's in Sri Lanka.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah, that was part of the Sri Lankan Civil War. Yeah, you're right. You know, that was the cameras off moment, as they called it. 24 hours to victory.
We put tape over the body cam. No audio.
Well, I mean, Russia tried that in Chechnya in the 2000s. They just sent tanks in.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to send unsupported tanks in. and the guys in Chechnya just hung off of roofs with RPGs and fired at the engines of the tanks from the roof, and then just threw gasoline, just poured gasoline on the tanks. It's like, how are we losing? It's like, well, we're basically using siege warfare where the guys are unprotected. I mean, you can't, the same reason, the same way they lost the Battle of Agincourt, the longbow defeated armor. I mean, you can't go into urban areas even within a metal box when people have
Yeah,
weapons.
you don't need a javelin missile when you got a skyscraper or a five-story building.
They just all they try to do is the tank, and of course the tanks were going in a row, which seems insane.
Oh yeah,
like knuckle up in this narrow row, just back to back, and okay, shoot the guy in the front and the back, and then just pour gasoline on everyone, and just, see you later.
It's like that guy at the Admiral you talk about who crossed the T, and everyone's like, "We didn't think the Japanese were that stupid."
Yeah. What's that guy's name? Yeah, I forget. Rear Admiral Ohlendorf. He was like, "Oh my God!" They're just like, "Yeah, swing the guns around. We're doing this." It's the last battle of Trafalgar. Well, the reason it happened was the Japanese were fleeing, and they came out a narrow gap. And so what they did is they thought they would shoot that gap and then disperse out into the sea. Well, they were trying to shoot that gap right as our guys were showing up this way, and they just got barraged on both sides. But yeah, that was like an old-fashioned like ships of the line battle. But of course, with like modern weapons for the time, so they just got torn to pieces. I mean, it was just annihilated them. Do we have enough boats to rescue these people? No. We don't, actually. Ever heard of the Bataan Death March? Don't worry about it.
Do we have enough sharks to recycle these people?
Yeah, that's really what the question is. How about if we turn those cameras off? Just let this play out.
Oh yeah, racing's back, so I've been following that sport too.
What's new in racing?
Let's see here. Well, Formula One's right now is being completely dominated by Max Verstappen.
It's shocking.
But we've had some, especially this week, we've had a bunch of shakeups in the whole business. Well, at the start, before the season even started, Lewis Hamilton's going to go to Ferrari next year. So that's a thing. Which displaces Carlos Sainz, who's the only other person to win a race in the last 2 years. No idea where he's going. Audi's going to come in 2026 when the rules change come in, when they change what the engines are. Which, as far as I know, the engines are just going to be more, they're just going to have even more electrically, they're just going to be more battery powered. And they're getting rid of the heat recovery energy system because it was expensive and prone to breaking and just not working. So they're simplifying. Because all the kinetic recovery stuff with like braking and what else do they do? Yeah, all the kinetic recovery stuff. That stuff all works like fine and dandy. So, but the heat recovery was the complicated, expensive thing that broke all the time. So yeah, by 2026, everybody's gonna have a new engine, which is why they had an engine freeze for the past going to be for 5 years, is so that teams could spend more money, or actually spend their money more efficiently creating these new engines, so it's less likely to be a shit show when they finally race with them. Because that's what happens every time there's really a big change like this. One team gets it right and then they dominate, which is what happened to Mercedes. Is that they changed the rules and the engines became so complicated that Mercedes, because they threw billions of dollars at it, they were the only ones that could survive and win 9 championships in a row. And then everybody caught up. It only took them a decade too. So. It took an engine freeze and a decade. and Honda ducking out of F1 because that seems to be their great thing. It's like, it's too expensive. It's like, well, you just built the best car ever made. It's like, fuck. They've done that like 3 times.
Huh.
But yeah, I guess because I don't know. That's just how their leadership is. So it's like, that's losing money. Get rid of it. I don't know. Toyota's weird like that too. But like, their president is like a race car driver. So they like, we'll make family cars and then we'll make one racing car. That's kind of like because that new is it the Supra or what is their big car?
Or sports car?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a guy here that drives one too in our neighborhood. It looks really cool.
I want to say it's a Supra. Yeah, it's a Supra.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is like that Supra is not built by Japanese. It's built.
Oh, it isn't?
It's built by Germans. Okay. Or at least it's designed and configured by a small German racing team.
Oh, okay.
Like they designed the car. Because they had the guy who, the president of Toyota, he's like a Nürburgring freak. Like that's the thing he races the most. So the Supra is like the one car they'll let out. Because every once in a while Toyota would put out a weird racing vehicle. Is like, what's this doing here? And then like nobody bought it, and so then they stopped making them. So it's like we just need a sedan, Toyota. It's like, okay, whatever. Go back to being boring. Or they'll sell like 400,000 SUVs to Africa for some reason.
What's those trucks they make? The Hilux.
Oh yeah.
Those are supposedly indestructible.
Yeah, what's going on? Oh yeah, so the other thing with F1 is that Christian Horner got in trouble with some naughty stuff, maybe? I don't know. And then they fired the employee, I think, because they made allegations. And so now Adrian Newey, the aero genius of F1, who's won a championship for every team he's worked for, is now leaving Red Bull.
So what was this guy doing? Embezzling money or something?
Oh no, just doing sex stuff with.
Oh, he's being a sex pest.
Yeah.
Oh, at least embezzle money.
Allegedly.
Okay. Oh yeah. Anymore, you don't know like what's true and what isn't.
I don't know. That guy's a dick, so I really don't care. So. Yeah. He's married to a Spice Girl. What do you know? What do you expect?
Which one?
Ginger.
Oh, okay. Spice Girls.
Was that Jerry Holloway? I think is her name, or Jerry something. I can't remember. It's not important.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, like, in the Drive to Survive when she shows up, and it's like, oh yeah, she's doing like a concert like that's sold out to like 60,000 people, and like that's a side story to like Christian Horner, like, oh, how are we gonna defeat Mercedes this year? I think they own like 4 castles. Like, oh yeah, that's my summer castle.
Gotta have a summer castle.
But yeah, that's always a weird thing with British people, where it's like, I don't know how like I don't know how the wealth divides there. There seems to be this weird thing where it's like everybody's poor and there's a few people that are super rich, but if you follow lineage, like anybody could be rich. Like just at any point somebody could be gifted a kingdom. Because like everybody comes from old money, and so it just depends on like they're just like distrust people with money. So, but they could give it out, but they're just not going to. Yeah, and then this week they're gonna be in Miami, which will probably be a shit show. Because oh yeah, they were in China last week, which they haven't been there for about 4 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say China's been forbidden territory for a while.
COVID has canceled it for the last 3 years, or 4 years. So they finally got one in. It was actually a decent race. I forget why, because Max Verstappen still won it, but there was at least like some passing in the. Oh, what was it? Oh yeah, somebody. Yeah. Oh, what was the crash? There's one crash that led to another crash, and then Haas got another point, because that's kind of like Haas's MO this year. Is like really like the top 5 teams. It's kind of locked in. Like they're and like also because reliability is so high that like all the cars are finishing the races, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
Which used to be a thing that was one of the rarest things that can ever happen in F1 is that all the cars will finish the race. And now it's just a common occurrence. And so if everybody's finishing the race, those top 5 teams are going to take all those top 10 spots, and like they're the only people that are getting points. So like for like Haas and Alpine, which is really shitty this year, and Williams, which is really complicatedly shitty. Like you want to root for them, but they're just not doing good. And then like Haas, who was like the worst team last year, are like, and they also fired Gunther Steiner, who like the the funny team principal that everybody likes, and they have I forget his first name. It's Komatsu. He's like their lead engineer guy. So now he's the team principal, and they just seem to be better run now. But also, Komatsu went to Gene Haas and said like, you know how Gunther Steiner liked to do that, like I'm gonna get sponsorships and I'm gonna be the team principal. I'm not doing that shit. Hire a guy to get all the sponsors. And so yeah, they just had races where like they'll end up in 9th and 10th unexpectedly. And it's not like their car is great. It's just like good enough that if they just hang in there, they'll get something.
Yeah.
There was also a great race where like fucking like Kevin Magnussen was on one strategy and Hulkenberg was on a different strategy. And so Magnussen got a penalty for something, and it was like a 10-second penalty, and he decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to spend the rest of the race illegally overtaking people and backing up the pack so that Hulkenberg can get a free pit stop. And it was great. Because people are like, oh, wow, what a defense. I mean, and I was like, yeah, that's great. But he just did things illegally.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, like Magnussen's known, I mean, one of his nicknames is the whitest motherfucker in the field. So, what do you expect? Yeah, what else? Yeah, that's kind of it. But yeah, I think there's still 4 teams with 0 points, and we're like 4 races in. Alpine is absolutely terrible. They got 2 races in and they fired their whole technical department.
What was that predicated on?
They did a design and it didn't work, and now the car's like way too heavy because they designed it in a way that they thought they could use less weight, and then it didn't work, and so then they had to reinforce everything so it would work, and now everything's too heavy. So
Oh, okay.
Also, their engine sucks, and they're the only person that uses their engine. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. They're in a really bad spot. I feel like I don't know. I mean, because it's like the only team that's like supported by a government, and so I don't know if they're gonna survive this one. But yeah, I don't know how much they care either. So, Williams is just like laughable because they're still trying to like pick up the pieces of like the system they inherited, and it's just garbage. And ever since they, because they have new like capital that got brought in, they're technically owned by an American investment group. But because now yeah, they're like owned by Darlington Capital.
Okay.
Which is fun because whenever I see their name on the side of the car and the shade of blue the car is, I always think of Cool Ranch Doritos because it starts with DOR. And, well, actually, DRI, yeah, so it's almost Doritos, but then it isn't. Darlington Capital. Um, but because they have but you still have, they introduced the spending cap, and so Williams needs a big investment in reconfiguring how their team works, and they can't field a race team and fix their entire system at the same time. um, to the point that I think they're in Australia. Alex Albon wrecked his car. They didn't have a car, like a second chassis that they could put together for him, and so then they just kicked Logan Sargent out of his car and gave it to Alex Albon. And so there was only 19 cars started that race. Just out of pure incompetence.
Sorry.
But yeah, that's F1. So, IndyCar has just had its third race. Oh no, well, technically it's second race, but it's third event.
Okay.
Because they started in St. Petersburg for a race, and then they went to California in this place called Thermal. I think the town's literally called Thermal, and then the race called Thermal.
Okay.
And it was a cat. What's that?
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's almost like you know how they have houses next to a golf course? Well, this is like what if a race course was next to your house, which sounds awful, but then you realize that these are just rich people who like they go out to the track and race their cars and nobody else is allowed. So, but it was a cash money event. There was no points on the line. It was kind of voluntarily. They changed some of the rules around. Like push to pass was available at all moments in the race. They had like stage racing where it's like the back half would be eliminated at each stage.
Okay.
And then there was like yeah, so yeah, that was one part of it. And there's one part it's like so you race one half and then the field all gets bunched back together and you start a new race. But like there's no tire changes. There's no refueling. There's basically no going to the pits.
Huh. Okay.
And you couldn't, I don't think you could even change your tires between these events. So there's like this like weird strategy that one guy or Colton Herta used where he just intentionally stayed in last place and made sure he didn't get lapped by the leader so that he could save his tires for the next half of the race, because then everything just gets recombined back together. And everybody else who used their tires, well, now he'll have better tires than them. He'll just go past them. He passed like 8 people. I think he came in like 4th place, but so ultimately it didn't work. It was just more advantage to just stay out front. I think ultimately it was a failure, but an interesting one. So I'd rather them like keep doing it. Just like,
yeah, it made it exciting when he passed those 8 people.
Yeah.
Like, you might pull this off.
But it's really boring in the first half where the guy was just like everyone's intentionally like not racing. It's like, what's the slowest way we can win the race? Which is that's actually how you win a race.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the slowest time it can take to win a race? Which
because everyone knows what the capabilities of the cars are because they're designed to spec.
Yeah.
I mean, you can come up with a dozen different designs, but it has to meet the same criteria. So,
and then, what was it? Yeah, then it was, oh no, I guess there's been 3 races. No. Oh man, okay. No, there's been 3 races. Okay, because I had one last week. So, Joseph Newgarden, he won the first race, which St. Petersburg, it's like on a airport, but also goes onto the street, so it's considered a street track. And usually he's not the best at that, and like he dominated there and like won easily. So it seems like, oh shit, this is gonna be a boring season because if Joseph Newgarden is winning the street tracks, then he's gonna win everything because he's even better on ovals and there's a lot of them. He's good at Iowa, and they have 2 races a year at Iowa. So, and then you had Long Beach, which is kind of considered the Monaco of North America. Just kind of how it's done and like kind of it doesn't have the big spectacle, but it's like next to a body of water, so there's kind of similar kind of characteristics there. But it's not like the outrageous rich people that the
Yeah.
but it's a long-standing event, and it's
Yeah, the Sultan of Bataan doesn't have like his son that's there or something.
but you do have like a port there with boats. Um, oh, I can't remember who won that race. It wasn't Joseph Newgarden. Oh shit, who won that race? Oh wait, no, this is one where Scott Dixon won it. Scott Dixon, who's like the 6-time IndyCar champion. He's kind of a boring racer because he's very mechanical, and so he did another. Oh, this time it kind of seemed like it was like the funnest boring race you could ever watch. I mean, the way he won it, because all he did
Yeah.
was went out there and he just used less fuel than everybody else, and he magically was able to keep a pace with the least amount of fuel possible. And so like by the end of the race, he was just like everybody had to pit, and he just like stayed out, and nobody could catch him, and he just won the race. And they even got to the end. Yeah, everyone, because like everyone, there was a bunch of other people that were trying that strategy, and everyone was like, "Man, I don't know what the fuck he did," because like I was saving gas and he was running away from me. So it's like I don't know how the fuck that works, but
It's feathering the throttle.
yeah, yeah. There's ways to do it. Like especially in IndyCar with the cars being very similar, there are ways to like basically go into corners without braking and without using gas, and then coming out of it basically at the same speed you would be if you were using brakes and gas. But you have to be very, very good at that. So.
Yeah, you got to be in touch with that thing because it's gonna flip.
But that's what Scott Dixon's known for. Is like he's a guy like I need a fuel number and I need a tire. I need you to be nice on your tires. And it's like gotcha. And it's like it's never like we fueled you up. You got new tires. We need you to pass 8 people. That's never his racing style. It's like it's just like I'm good on tires and I'm using the gas better than everybody else. And then by the end of the race, he'll become there. He'll win it. Which now means he's won a race 20 years in a row. So which I'm not sure if it's a record, but it's a pretty crazy
It's gotta
stat.
be close. Yeah, that's pretty progressive.
I think it was like him and Lewis Hamilton like were like neck and neck, but now Lewis Hamilton hasn't won a race for 2 years, so that record's gone. um so yeah, that was kind of exciting. And then we had the children's Alabama Grand Prix or something like that. um, which this started in controversy because they found out, kind of by happenstance, that all the Penske cars were using their push to pass. Which, do you know what push to pass is?
Now explain it.
It basically there's it's like a turbo button for the.
Okay.
It basically adds like it kind of unlocks the engine and allows you to get like 50 more horsepower out of the engine. The limitation on it is I think you only have 120 seconds of it per race, and I think the most you can use it is for like 10 or seconds or something like that. So you can't just use it infinitely. You also can't use it on starts or restarts. You can't use it at the start or restarts. You have to use it at a certain spot, which is called the alternate start line or something like that.
Okay.
So they found out that in the first race of the year, where Joseph Newgarden was like, "Oh look how crazy fast he is." It turns out his push to pass was allowed to be used during these times they weren't allowed to be used.
Oh, nice.
And so all 3 Penske cars were well, Joseph was disqualified from the race, so there's his race win gone. Actually, I think they took all his points away from the season.
Yeah.
They did because he used it multiple times in that race. Scott McLaughlin had used it once, which he says he did it by accident, but just by habit. But because he did it once, they disqualified him as well.
Yeah.
So he's back. He's got 0 points. Will Power had it available, but never used it. So he was only docked 10 points. And so yeah, that gave Pato Award retroactively a race win. So he's my favorite. He's my favorite driver out of IndyCar. My favorite Irish Mexican. Pato Award.
It's an interesting combo
there. Yeah. McLaren's also my favorite team, but it's like both this and F1 because they're kind of like the best team that's never gonna win. So that's why I root for them. They're like the best underdog there is.
Oh, okay. These guys got spunk. They got no chance, but they got spunk.
Yeah. And then now Colton Herta is like leading the championship. But then for that Alabama race, Scott McLaughlin won it. So he went from last place to now he's like in 12th place. So but yeah, at least he showed like he could win a race fairly. So he also won it last year, so that makes sense. Also, the mannequin, like a weird art installment mannequin that hangs off a bridge, fell down and got ran over in the middle of the race.
It was probably a strange moment for everyone.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Is that a person? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, the commentators are pretty quick to say, like, oh, that's a mannequin. Her name's Georgina. I was like, oh, okay. Because you thought for a moment there just a lady had died on the racetrack.
Spectacular suicide. Just hurl yourself in front of the cars.
And then they have a slow motion of, like, the camera's, like, looking down the racetrack, and then she just falls out of the bridge. Because she had her hanging, like, underneath this glass bridge walkway that people walk over and can see the race. And, then she just like falls down, like her arms are up like this, falls down, and then falls over. And then like when her feet hit the ground, like the skirt just drops to the ground. So then she like sort of has like, whatever, a mannequin's ass cheeks hanging out, which was also just funny. And I remember like someone like IndyCar posted something like half drunk lady ruins like IndyCar race or something like that, which is funny. And then like her arms are like sticking out like onto the track, and then like somebody comes by and just like knocks off one of her arms. And it's like, oh Jesus Christ. Because I know it's not an analog to what that would do to a human, but it's enough to be like, Jesus, you don't get hit by an Indy car.
Yeah, don't get hit by something going 170 miles an hour.
So yeah, that's again. I thought IndyCar was going to be boring this year if Joseph Newgarden was going to be that dominant, but now that it's not that case and he gets put to the back of the field, it's now exciting again because now we've had a different race winner for every race, which is how IndyCar usually is and what makes it better than F1. It's just the competition is there. Anybody can win.
Yeah. Especially if some of the guys are cheating.
Well, it's even funnier is that Team Penske, Roger Penske, he owns IndyCar and he owns the Indianapolis 500 race course.
Yeah.
And so basically his organization told on itself. So I guess, that's good transparency. It means like, oh, okay. So.
Well, yeah, you're not going to get away with it. Word's going to get around on that. You gotta get out in front of that one.
But I was hearing some technical talk about how like, because one person explained it as that like, it was like, okay, so the computer program the team wrote on how push to pass works, and so like they pre-built a program for the thermal race where push to pass was available everywhere, and like they try to make it look like, oh, we installed it and we just forgot we did that, which is like, sure. But apparently it's all like gated by race control. So like you can't override race control to like allow your push to pass. Race control has to allow you to use push to pass. Like some GPS thing has to get sound out to say like you're good to go. So it means that these people intentionally were circumventing the rules. It wasn't like we put the wrong program in. It's like, no, we intentionally didn't bother to talk to race control to use this. So,
Let's see if we can get away with it.
And then so yeah, I don't know about that, but because now it's presumably up in the air if it's like an intentional circumvention of the rules. It's like, because I could see if like, oh, we loaded the wrong package for this year, but now you have to be like, now you have to suspect the last 5 years or whatever. So I don't know who's gonna do that work, but we'll see.
Oh, someone will.
But yeah, so that's racing. Also, the F1 group bought MotoGP, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but now they have that. You might see combination F1 MotoGP events.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
But I know there's a few crossover courses that they have, but I know that the requirements are way different. Which I forget which is which. I forget who has like more stringent requirements. It's either MotoGP or F1. So. Because MotoGP is more inherently deadly, I believe. So, or at least it's more potential, and also it's incredibly difficult on your shoulders for some reason. Because apparently, like separated shoulder surgery, like MotoGP has down to a science, to basically to the point where you can get your shoulder put back together and be racing within a week.
That's crazy.
Now, it's not permanent. The thing they do will get you to the next race. It will not fix you forever.
Oh, okay. So you're just waiting for failure.
Yeah, but it's still a surgery.
Yeah, those are the guys that lean, right?
Yep.
Those are the leaners where your knee is like a quarter's width off the ground. And you're going like, incredibly fast.
Also, I guess Japan is getting out of MotoGP.
Was it just too dangerous or just not enough?
I don't know. It seems like a political thing. I have no idea. I think like actually like which one's the South Korean? Is that Suzuki? Or no, wait, no. Yeah, Suzuki, yeah. Yeah, Suzuki.
I thought that was Japanese.
Which one's South Korean? South
Daewoo.
Korean motorcycle. Oh, I don't recognize. Oh, maybe. I thought one of the big ones was South Korean. Maybe. Anyways, yeah, maybe not. But yeah, it looks like they're. So yeah, it looks like Kawasaki, Suzuki, and all of them are getting out of. So get ready for your Ducatis, your Husqvarnas.
Harley Davidsons.
There is like a series. There is a racing series out there. That basically races like side saddle Harley Davidsons that are souped up to go like 200 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but
there's people that put Hayabusa engines on Harley frames and race them and stuff. Insane stuff.
Are those the crazy trucks that that they jump during the race? I think they're called, I can't remember. They're not even called super trucks, but
tough trucks.
Yeah, that always looks amazing, but like it hasn't seemed to like reach the pop culture yet. So there must really be a big flaw to it, because you watch 30 seconds of it, it looks amazing, but I'm guessing the whole race must not be there for like for full entertainment. So
it's very destructive.
Yeah.
Because the joke is you're taking like street trucks and driving them on monster truck courses, which like looks really cool, but it's like, most of those are destroyed. It's, after, 2 jumps.
Yeah. But yeah, that's sports and racing. Oh, I guess hockey's good. I wouldn't know. I'm not watching it, but apparently it's good. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know either. My son went to the NFL draft in Detroit,
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, he enjoyed it.
Yeah, it seemed like a way big event for just announcing names, so I guess I have no idea. Is the NFL as big as it's ever been now, or what's going on?
It's the biggest. It's America's sport at this point. Doesn't get any bigger than that.
I guess. I mean, it's more consolidated. That's why it makes sense. It's easier to follow, one game in a weekend than it is to follow,
Yeah,
80
exactly.
games through the season. So,
Yeah, no, that's exactly what's going on. It's you can pour all your energy, and you can make a trillion bets on one
oh
game.
yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I keep forgetting how big betting has gotten, being that I don't bet. So,
Yeah, I don't either. I'm not good. I'm not good enough at math to be a game.
I keep seeing new like different DraftKings commercials with like new angles. That's like, it's like, oh Jesus Christ! We're just gonna bankrupt America. um, because now they just have like a separate app or just like a portion of the app that's just on like, because I guess the Kentucky Derby is happening like this week or something like that, and so now they just have a new special like part of the app just for horse betting. Like, let's get you can get like your Wikipedia article on your horses and like really study up for the race so you're ready to gamble. So give you all the false sense of security. um,
Yeah, I mean, you can bet on whether the guy at Dave and Buster's is going to make his baskets in the game. The games that they play there.
oh yeah, they just fucking nuclear. They just did the nuclear option on a basketball player.
Oh, did that?
They just fucking lifetime banned on this guy for throwing games or just being associated with throwing games.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's basketball. They had their what was it?
Well, I know they had the refs for doing that, but like
Yeah.
I know baseball like it's like the Otani. I think he's like one of the biggest players right now. He's the guy who can like hit homers and he's a pitcher at the same time. He's like the best of both worlds. So like apparently like his translator was betting, and everyone's like, yeah, they're pretty close. There's no way he didn't know about betting on games. So, um, oh, there's something fucking weird with like the A's, where like they just desperately want to move out of the stadium. So now they're like, they've already moved away from the stadium, but they don't have a place to go. So now they're just like playing in a minor league park somewhere, and like it's embarrassing. But I don't really follow baseball, so I don't know. I heard the new rules are killing pitchers, so there's that too.
Yeah.
Because they instituted a pitching clock, so you can't just stay there forever and figure out when you want to pitch. You have to like pitch within the pitching clock, and I guess that's being hard on pitchers.
Oh, well, they got a shot clock for pitching. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
I know. I think last year we did a whole like thing up. They made a bunch of different rules, but again, we don't really watch baseball, so I wouldn't expect because they made the bases bigger for safety reasons. They eliminated the shift because basically they had solved baseball, and so people knew exactly where it's like, okay, with this pitching matchup and this batter, if he hits it, it's going to go to this part of the field, and they would just like shift all the players to that part of the field and just get an out. So, but now you can't do that. Now you have to have like a player has to be in their position vaguely.
Okay.
You can't just shift the whole team over to where they're going to hit the ball.
The Oakland A's are leaving Oakland after 2024, but they're playing in Sacramento at like a AA field
Yeah.
until 2027 until they can officially become the Vegas Athletics.
Okay. You figure if it was Vegas, they just get a baseball stadium built in like 2 days.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know why it's taking so long, unless they're building some just insane complex.
Yeah,
Didn't they do that for the Raiders?
probably. But yeah, they're full of teams now.
Oh yeah,
Because
they'll give you anything you want.
because used to be there's like there's a conflict of interest. We shouldn't have teams, but they're like, well, we're Vegas, we don't care.
Yeah.
Now I'm pretty sure they do have strict rules around their teams not like throwing things, but yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean the Golden Knights, they won a championship. I think so.
Yeah.
They got the WNBA team. They won 2 championships. I actually think the Raiders are embarrassing, so I don't know. I know the son took over the team and it has not gone well, but also his dad was a terrible person with a lot of money. So
Right.
uh,
That's always fun.
I mean that's football. There's not like a good person in football that owns a football team.
No, I've never heard of the cool guy that owns a football team.
I think the coolest owner is probably Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
And probably only just because he has that that med thing online where you can get cheap drugs.
Yeah, he's like one of those super entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like he basically got he got like $1 billion selling off like basically like internet like video before it was a big thing. I forget what was the thing because I think that I forget what he sold, but like it disappeared within 5 years of him selling it,
Oh,
and then 5 years after that, like basically everybody was capitalized on it. Like it could have been YouTube had it been structured right, but it wasn't. So, um, yeah, he's also part of Shark Tank, so of course.
that's right. I knew there was a TV show. I was thinking The Apprentice for some reason. Like, no, that hasn't been a thing for quite a while.
What else? So what have you been watching lately? Is there anything you want to any movies or TV that you've remembered?
I haven't been doing any movies. I wanted to see Dune 2. I think me and Grayson are going to go see the Furiosa prequel.
Oh, okay.
I've been really there's been a lot going on in my life. I've been really busy, so
Yeah.
I think I've worked harder this week than I have in the last 2 years just on my home. I'm actually not working right now. I'm technically between facilities, so yeah, but that's so I haven't really said I read the Annie Jacobson book. We talked about that. And what else was there? Been listening to some things, but nothing that really stands out. But yeah, I just a lot of my time is like I'm just running around doing stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think I forget all of them. But I think for a while there was apparently like everybody made their own Adult Swim on like almost every network. And I just started watching all of them and like they're all fine. But I've forgotten basically all of them. There's there's a couple on Fox. Or I can't remember what it's called. It has well, now I'm forgetting everything about it. Who's the Madman guy?
John Hamm.
Yeah, it's John Hamm as like a detective.
Was that like Welcome to Darkville or
Yeah.
something like that?
Let me see what it is. Yeah, it's something like that. Grimsburg.
Grimsburg. Okay.
Which is like a fairly violent animated show on Fox, so I'm guessing it must come on after like Family Guy and Bob's Burgers and that stuff. Or it might have its own spot somewhere on like a Saturday or something like that. But yeah, it's pretty funny. I remember there's like this weird thing where it's like he has his ex-wife was like raised by bears and she's like a reporter, and so she has like a claw mark on her face and like one of those like animal tags on her ears, like for like being tracked. um, and then they have a kid, which like the kid's just kind of like a like a well mannered dork, but like what is John Hamm's character? Marvin Flute. So like Marvin basically like just like basically like ignores the kid because like I don't know what for reason, but it's like when the kid like does something he can be proud of, then he'll pay attention to him, but otherwise he doesn't care. And there's like a part at the end where it's like the kid kind of wins some of his affection at the end of it, and then like the kid kind of celebrates, and then you see like this skeleton with its head on fire, and it's like this kid's imaginary thing. It's like, great, we won the affection of your father. Now let's go burn down the school, and it's like, oh no. That one's pretty good. Oh, what else was there? There's a bunch of old ones. Oh yeah, there's one called Dicktown, which I think that one was Adult Swim, but it was like the it was like the pompous kind of like Daily Show reporter that was like an Ivy League guy, and he's always on NPR too. Do you remember that guy? I'll just look it up. John Hodgman.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he plays like he was a kid detective who then grew up to just kind of be a loser, but he's still like runs a detective agency.
Oh, okay.
Which is a fun premise. But yeah, it only had 2 seasons, so it's done. There's another one on Adult Swim that's new called Royal Crackers. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's basically just like this family. It's a family that's like, it comes from this big cracker maker, and then but it's like it's fallen in disrepair now, but it still just like has enough market share that it still like makes money. Although like they have mansions and stuff, it's all kind of like inherited, and they actually like seem kind of like poor, but like they could extract wealth if they knew how to, but they just kind of like live poorly in a mansion. It's very weird, but there's some like every once in a while there's like a thing that's incredibly genius. That's like that's just there's like one episode where like there's the main guy. He's like the older brother. His name's Steve with a B instead of with a V. And then like he goes to Starbucks and like they get his name wrong, and he's like, "No, it's Steve. It's Steve with a B." And then she's like, "Are you sure? This is a Starbucks. We can't just write like illegitimate names on the cups." And then he like basically that gives him, now that people are calling him Steve, he basically gets like it goes to his head and he kind of has a different persona. I think so. It's a good episode. But then there's one bit where it's like this guy's usually kind of like, he's a very timid person. And there's one episode where like they stop selling crackers in like the school district, so like they lose some business there. But their rival business that sells like kale chips, they get the contract with the schools. And so then they go on like the offensive by like basically touting things they don't believe and go on conservative networks to like make the kale chips look like they're bad or it's for pussies or whatever. It's like you need to eat these like salty ass chips that don't like regular crackers like Americans do. And so like him and his wife go onto like a Fox News type place, and so like the whole time the guy's like kind of talking and the wife is like kind of sitting there patiently, and she kind of talks back and forth. But Steve, all you hear is him. He's just like, it's like the microphone is in his throat and he's just heavy breathing like. But like the entire like interview. And then when he finally answers, he just like yells his answer. It's like, "Thanks, Tom." I'll send you a video. So.
Oh, okay.
It's a great little bit that's very stupid. So. And I saw the latest season of Rick and Morty where they had the people that replaced the one guy, which it was a good season, and also like the replacement people do a good job. Although the guy that does Morty, he kind of goes in and out. Like he can, so like sometimes he sounds exactly like Morty, and sometimes like, oh yeah, it's different. But the guy who does Rick sounds exactly like Rick. So, um,
Yeah, why did the original creator stop doing it?
oh, you don't know?
No, no.
Oh man.
Is it text to
There,
minors or something?
no, but it's like he was dating a porn star, and then she alleged that he hit her and stuff like that. And then for a moment there, it's it's like one of those things where like the case got thrown out of court, but then later on in a different like civil case, like it was revealed like here's all the affidavits of what he admitted to, and it's like, oh, he admitted to everything. He just didn't get
Oh, so stuff that got
legally.
kicked out of criminal court got admitted to civil court.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
so basically like he did everything because he admitted to it in all these affidavits or whatever, but they just weren't admissible in the original court case. But then the second one, it's like, oh, okay, so you did it, you just didn't get in trouble for it. So then, of course, everybody's like, well, abandon ship on all this. So he got kicked out of he got kicked off of Rick and Morty. Um, he has a cartoon on Hulu called like Solar Opposites. So they got a new cast. They got a guy to fill his voice there, which they got a British guy. So now it's, which which they made a funny point when like he says something like he has a new device. So like when you see flashbacks, he's like, yeah, I got a new voice, and now with this machine, retroactively all my flashbacks, I'll also have this voice. And then he had a video game that actually did like really super well. Oh, what was that called? High on Life. Which sold really well and probably made him like $30 million or something like that. So now that's probably not going forward. So.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so he's been completely ejected from Hollywood. So,
well, at least it didn't involve underage people, I guess.
no. At least that's what I know. So like, yeah, every time I look into it, it's just like a minefield of like, oh, this is terrible, and then the people like defending him is like, I don't think this is any better. I don't think you're making it like, I don't think you're making this go away. But that's like the thing, like all this stuff was like from 2020, and then it just like took like 2 years to get out and get into court cases, and then like slowly everyone's like, wait, what happened, and why did everybody turn a blind eye to this? And so yeah, then eventually everybody did the right thing and canceled him.
I mean, he's got enough money, so
Yeah. Yeah, like because that Jerry Seinfeld going out this week, being interviewed and talking about how like, yeah, all this far left culture, like you can't be funny anymore. Like Seinfeld would have been canceled by now. And then somebody wrote like, yeah, it's almost like you're forgetting half of the creative team from Seinfeld continued to make a television show for the last 10 years and it just ended. With Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Right.
And then if you look at It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which I feel is the superior version of Seinfeld, does crazy stuff all the time. You just got to know how to do it. So, well, with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's like we all know that they're terrible people, and then they do terrible things, and then it can be hilarious. Which I think what I never liked about Seinfeld is like, oh, they're terrible people, but you want us to like them. It's like, nah, that doesn't really gel. So it worked at the time, but I grew not to like it. And not because anybody told me to. It's because they had so many fucking reruns, I decided no more. I don't like these people anymore. Which actually made me turn around on the series finale of Seinfeld, because I thought it was stupid when I was a kid. It's like, why'd you put them in jail? And then when I grew up, I was like, right, they're terrible. They belong in jail.
Selfish people, yeah.
Yeah, look at all the lives they destroyed for selfish, petulant reasons. And we cheered them.
Yeah, we're like, I want to be like these people. They're having fun.
Exactly. So yeah. If you have like Max or Hulu, you can find all these weird adult animated television shows that got 1 or 2 seasons. I think I talked about before. One of my favorite was Hot Streets. That's a good one. It is so fucking bizarre. It was an Adult Swim show. It only got like 2 seasons, but it has like they're only 15-minute episodes, so you can just knock that thing out in like an afternoon. So I recommend Hot Streets. I think that's on Max.
Oh, okay.
It's weird. I forget. I think Max owns Adult Swim, but I know like Hulu. Like if you want to see Rick and Morty, you gotta watch it on Hulu. So.
Oh, okay.
There's some weird division there.
Yes, now there is something I have been watching a lot of. It's the guys that do it's the YouTube car channels.
Okay.
Like there's a guy that does one called Vice Grip Garage.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He just takes junk cars and like, can I get them going?
Yeah.
And he's like one of those mechanics. And then he has an HBO show called what's it called? Like Roadworthy Rescues.
Huh. Okay. I don't think I've seen that. Huh.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. The guy's he seems like this folksy guy from Wisconsin who just likes to fix cars, and he's like one of those mechanic guys. And you find out it's like, oh yeah, he's a high level CEO at some auto thing.
Oh, okay.
And he like knows how to like print auto parts using like he can like program like, oh yeah, I want to make these custom brackets to hold this this winch I'm putting in on this Jeep. So I'm going to load these parameters into this like water cutting machine. And I'm going to, cut these out. And it's like, okay, this guy just only seems whimsical. He's actually really intelligent, but he has this persona of, he talks like one of the characters from Fargo kind of guys. Cause he's like, he takes the distributor cap off and he's like, oh, we're going to clean out the sparkulator here and get the fuel sender going. He doesn't use the proper terms and everything, but then you find out it's like, oh, this guy's probably like some kind of low grade genius.
Yeah.
And because he literally takes like junk cars.
Yeah.
Like he bought a Lamborghini made out of wood. And it's like, I'm going to drive this 1,200 miles back to my workshop. And it's like barely held together. Our vehicles where the fuel, they've been sitting so long, the fuel in the gas tank is mostly varnish and water.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're gonna drain this out here, not on the ground. No, we wouldn't want that, but we're gonna drain this out and get some fuel in it. But it's done in this whimsical way. But it's like, yeah, these guys are actually, because this is a world I can somewhat imagine. It's like, no, these guys are actually awesome at what they're doing, and it doesn't seem quite as staged.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, some of those stuff is like, oh, we did a barn find of like a, like a Copo, Camaro from the 70s, and it's like no one barn found that and got it running $500 or whatever. These guys are actually like driving junk, like just across the country. And
there's a YouTube channel I have, and they're local. They're out of Iowa. It's called Junkyard Digs, and they kind of just
okay, I've seen those guys.
And yeah, they'll just like, oh, there's a tree growing through this car, and they just get it running and drive it out of there. They seem more authentic. It's like, it's a husband and wife duo, and the wife is very weird, and it's fun.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, she's really quirky.
Yeah.
Whenever they put the camera on her, she's always like saying something weird, or she's like,
or she's like ducking behind something. You can only see like the top of her head.
Yeah, they seem to be having fun.
Yeah,
that's my new thing on YouTube. I kind of cycle through the gun channels. Channels are like, well, I just can't afford this, and then I look at the cars and it's like, well, I can't really do this either, but at least I understand this world in a very limited
It
way.
doesn't
It's
have
like,
some weird political
no,
thing in the background. So
I mean, I'm not going to have to worry about these guys being like, we're being demonetized because we're woke or we're not.
yeah,
Like, these guys aren't doing that. Eventually, they'll come for them. They'll be like, they're using gasoline. But until that happens,
yeah.
the YouTube car channels are fun. And now some of them are complete horse crap. Too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some of this stuff where it's like, this is all staged.
Yeah, it's staged and stunts, and there's no.
Yeah,
It's basically a new version of Pimp My Ride, where it's like, look at all the spectacle, and there's like it's absolutely useless.
No, I like the whimsical stuff. Like, oh, I found like a 1935 Hudson that's been sitting in a barn. Let's see if we can make this go. Like, that's cool.
Yeah,
I like it where it's like, I'm going to find this rare car and throw it into a car shredder because I'm a borderline sociopath. It's like, cool. Okay, good. Have fun with that. I know what kind of person you are already. I've met plenty like you. And I wasn't impressed then. I'm not now. So,
hey, I remember the Junkyard Digs one time. They got like a weird car from. They went to Minnesota to pick it up, and it was like, oh, it was some kind of like small sports car that the guy put a snowmobile engine in.
2-stroke engine in this thing.
Yeah, but because like, but there's basically like there's no gears because it had like that continual CVT.
Transmission.
So you just put it in a gear and you just go, and it's like the first 40 miles per hour, it's amazing, but then it just tails off really quickly.
The engine's gonna start loading up on you in a hurry.
But like also like the engine bay is like so empty. So it's like there's like for every for every plus there's an equal and opposite downside. So and they put it on a dyno to see how much house horsepower it's putting out. It was like 98. It's like, oh man, that's not impressive. So. But it's still a quirky, weird thing. So that somebody just built just for the hell of it. So
Yeah, I mean it's the stuff where the guys do find like, oh, I forget. Yeah, well, I think it was because there's Vice Grip Garage and Roadworthy Rescues, but it's the same guy.
okay.
Roadworthy Rescues is actually a produced show on HBO.
Oh, okay.
Or Vice Grip Garage is like kind of a YouTube only thing, but yeah, just finding like a big block Corvette from like the 70s or something. It's like, I bet you that would be cool, but not to work on. And you find this guy's also like 6'5", big guy, and he's like, he goes to people's houses and just show. I mean, there is a truck with tools on it somewhere. I know that. And he's not just showing up with a mechanic set, but he's basically like, let's slap a battery in here and see what happens. And working on that Corvette was a nightmare. It's got this gigantic engine shoved into this really tiny engine bay, and this vehicle that's all fiberglass. Everything's crammed in there. You can't really work on it. And like the shifting linkages between the gear shifter and the transmission were all screwed up. That's basically why it got shelved.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're going to have to fix those, and that's going to suck because sometimes you have a lift. And it's just all, it's like a fighter jet. It's just crammed in there so tight. There's no working room. So he finally got it. So like, I think it would go into like third gear. Like that was the starting gear. You could do third, fourth, fifth. And it's like, well, we're going to try to get home this way. Oh, and it won't go into reverse either. Fun.
Yeah.
Push it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always.
We're going to drive it 800 miles. And of course, it's going to overheat. The battery's going to quit. All the accessory alternators, everything are going to stop.
But I mean, yeah, but always the impressive thing is like how little it takes to just get them started and going. Like, well, the engine's running. It's like not for long, but yeah, you can get you just take brake cleaner for everything.
Yeah, brake cleaner.
Fuel, cleaning, brakes, brake cleaner for everything. You just
spray in the carb, it'll even run off of it a little bit.
Exactly. Every time you just spray the carburetor with some brake fluid and like it'll start pumping. It'll start churning some cranks over. You get some life in that. And then, of course, like, the gas tank is rusted out, so they got to get, like, a secondary tank. But it's like, well, now it's running. Now we just got to get these timing points. We just got to get some sandpaper and grind those points down. They'll start working again. And it's like, oh, man, cars don't seem so complicated when it takes somebody literally half an hour to get something that wasn't working for 20 years is now running. But then again, having the engine running and moving the car are completely different things. So
Yeah, because you get the engine running, and it's like, now let's put it into gear and see what it does. Drive like nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's no transmission fluid in it, or it's all turned into gum.
And then you think like these things are like 20 and 30 years old. It's like, we're gonna have to get like stuff specially made to redo this, and they just fucking go to AutoZone and get some stuff, and then they just make it work. And it's like, it's close enough, whatever.
Junkyard. Now, what really impressed me is like do that with a modern car.
Yeah.
Your car or my car. It's like, how are we gonna fix
Yeah.
this?
There's
Take a Molotov cocktail, throw it into the engine bay because you're never gonna get it to run.
I mean, that's specifically why these channels are amazing, because it gives you the false sense of a belief that you can fix things.
Well, like I said, I'm not as good as my friends, but some of the stuff they've done on these channels, like I've done shit like that to get a car home.
Yeah.
Usually to a junkyard because I don't play with them so much.
It's
like I've put a drive shaft in a car by the side of the freeway and stuff like that. It's not smart, it's not safe, but it did get it down the road.
I remember I had a car like the I think the alternator was bad. Yeah, the alternator was bad. So the it wouldn't kick over. So like one way it was like spray some starter fluid in the air intake.
Yeah.
Start it up, kick it over, good. The alternate method we had for a little while is we had an extra battery in the back seat and just hooked that up to the normal battery, started the car, and then put the plugs back in and kept going.
Seat battery, yep.
And I think eventually just the alternator just died completely and we couldn't recover the car and just junked it. But
yeah,
which I always feel bad about all the cars I couldn't recover because I wasn't good enough or know enough. YouTube wasn't around then, or else I would have saved that car. But
it gets to a point. It's like with my son's car. It's like, oh yeah, we could fix that problem it was having, but the thing was, you get it up on a hoist and look at it. It's like, oh, this thing's completely destroyed from the winter. Like everything's rusted. Like all the points where the body and the suspension came together. Like, yeah, this all is like within a year of failing. It's just not worth doing anymore. So, yeah, because that was another fantasy I had. It's like, I'm going to live in the country. I'm going to get me a garage lift, and I'm just going to maintain the car I drive for the rest of my life. And then you find out, like, that's probably not going to happen. Cars you're going to be able to fix and drive, it's like, well, when gas is $10 or $15 or $20 a gallon, you're not going to be able to use those. So.
I was like, it's probably one of the reasons why I got stick shifts is so you can roll and start your car in case the battery goes. Which that's always a fun little skill.
Yeah, that is fun when you can do that. Push it down the street, put her in second, let it out slow, pop it out.
Is that what I do? I can't remember. I usually have it in neutral and then I pop it into first and then hit the gas or what? I haven't done it in a long time. I completely forget to do it.
People are pushing it. If people are pushing it, you don't want to put it in first because
I've only done it by myself.
Oh, okay.
Because the times that I did at Walmart and it was on a hill, and so all I had to do was turn the car down the hill and pop it. I believe one time I did a running start, like grab the steering wheel, push the car, get it on a run, hop in, and do it.
That's when I had nothing can stop me. Come on, world.
I mean, I was on flat ground, so it's like if this doesn't work, the car's not going anywhere, so it's all right. So. But yeah, so far I think my last two cars. Oh no, I guess I guess just the latest car. I gotta change the battery in it because it's starting to get that blue foam on the on the points.
Oh yeah,
it's like which I doubt.
Well, I'm actually driving that car anymore.
What's that?
How much is that car being driven anymore?
Oh, not much.
Yeah,
like once, maybe 20 miles a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the point I forgot to put my I got my new tags and I forgot to put them on the car because I just don't use it enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, usually yeah I don't go deep on car stuff on YouTube. I think I watch a lot of donut stuff, but that's pretty like low rent, like kind of what do you call that? Like popular or what do you call that?
It doesn't have any depth to it.
Nah,
pretty
it
s-
can, but yeah, it's for a broader audience. It's not necessarily for gearheads. But they do have some. I do like their Money Pit stuff. I think actually during the pandemic was like their best one because that's when they built a Miata, and like it was just a guy in his garage showing you how to do all this stuff by yourself. Um, but now they're doing now they have some fun ones because they have the high low thing where they take two cars and they try to turn it into a specific kind of vehicle, and one car gets like the most expensive parts they can buy and the other one's trying to use the cheapest parts they can get. And of course usually always the high car does the best because it's always the best parts, but there's always something charming about the low car where it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's making it work. I remember there was one where like they tried to turn them into, I think it was just like street, like time attack cars out of oh, what are the Nissans? 350Z or what are those? What are those Z cars from Nissan?
Yeah. The Fairlady Z's, the
Yeah.
350s.
Yeah, I
something
think
like that.
350Z. And like the low car, they put like a truck engine in it and some other stuff, and then they had this weird hump at the front of it where they had to like rechannel like the exhaust or whatever or something, and so it just looks ugly, but like it performs admirably well for like all the crazy stuff they had to do to the car because obviously it lost against the expensive one, but like there's something charming about it. But currently they're doing a thing where they just took like a $500 Ford Ranger and they're trying to turn it into one of those oh, what are those trucks that do like the Dakar rally? What do you call those?
Oh, just the rally, the desert racing trucks.
Yeah.
I forget what the name of those is, but yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, they just leap through the air.
yeah.
The dune
that-
hoppers.
Yeah,
whatever.
they have like the super long suspension so that like those things like go up and down like 3 feet, but the driver's just sitting still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Raptor F-150, their suspension was based around a more simplified version of that. That's why you could just take that thing and yank the wheel to the right, and unless there was a deep culvert or something, you just drive through a field
Huh.
and you could hardly notice it. And that was the first generation one. Then they had like the Texas edition, which was like another $10,000. That was like an aftermarket upfit. But yeah, those were insane. It's like supercharged engines and
I like the Velociraptor that had like 6 wheels.
oh yeah.
Baja
Well, the
trucks.
thing
I
with
think
the
that's what they're called.
Raptors, the first generation of them that came out, like they were priced not that far outside of like, oh, if you could buy an entry level Lexus, like you could buy a Raptor
Yeah.
and you have a lot more fun with it. But they didn't tell you it was 6-speed transmission with a 4:10 gear ratio front and rear, which means you're going at freeway speeds. That engine's like, wow, just not enough. The gears it's so low geared that and then that went on hiatus for a while. Now I think it's back, but it's like a $90,000 truck.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know who's taking an aluminum hulled truck. Like, let's go dirt diving. It's like, well, good luck. And also, I think it only had a V6 turbocharged engine for a while, which no, it had a 6.7 liter V8 engine when the first iteration came out. But see, they have to do that for their fleet average fuel economy stuff.
Yeah.
That's why, because they always make it sound like, oh, these car companies suck. It's like, no, the people that build cars love them as much as you do. If they could put a twin turbocharged V10 in that thing, they would. but they can't do it because the government, has to ruin everything. So
Um, and they also built Toyota Overlanders, which is a thing I never heard of before, where it's basically
yeah,
where it's sort of like hiking a trail but with a truck,
yep.
but it's not exactly rock climbing.
Well, and the other thing with Overlanders is it's a full camping
Yeah,
apparatus
yeah.
and everything. Go.
Because
Those were called apocalypse vehicles before you could call them that anymore because the preppers weirded everyone out.
the luxury one basically like it had a tent that like used would unfold and have like two stories.
Yep.
It's like, oh, that's cool, but I'm not buying that. I'm never gonna take that out to overland. So, but it's a neat thing. So good on the people who are doing it.
Well, I like the people that would get like the F-350. Like they would always get like city utility work trucks, like F-350s. Some of them are 4-wheel drive even, and they'd put like the U-Haul body on the back of them and just make that into some kind of giant like overlander thing. But the problem with those U-Haul bodies, they didn't like the torsional stresses of off-roading. So but yeah, there were people that were doing that. All kinds of crazy configurations. It's creative, but it's when I see the kind of money they're putting in that, it's like, man, you could build an addition on your house and actually
Basically,
get that
it's a
money
house
back.
on wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this thing's going straight into a junkyard once you're sick of this hobby.
And I remember the other one they built. They built a BMW E35. I think that's the right one. And they bought an automatic and they converted it into a manual transmission, and that's the one I was like, it's like, man, I could do that. I started planning things on how to do it, but like when they put that video out, the prices on those E35s, like 1990 E35 BMWs, were like $3,000.
Yeah.
And like you could do this project for about $4,500. Like I could do that, but then by the time the video came out, they doubled in price, and then I was
Now the transmission's $3,500,
Yeah.
and that's a junkyard transmission.
but also that like well, now I'm gonna have to have car insurance on this thing, and that's gonna be a hassle. He's like, you know what? I'm just not getting into this.
Yeah, it all dies. Trust me, I have the same ambitions. It all dies when you get into. It's like I'm just gonna have a hobby thing. No pressure. It's not gonna be to work. It's just gonna be a hobby thing. I'm gonna spend the rest of my life building an OB side F1 or F-350 like Russ Cole had and True Detective. That's the one I want to build. The diesel standard cab. Then you look at like, yeah, you just can't afford it. It's just not realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, if my kid didn't have to go to college, maybe. And I always tell him, I was like, I could have had a great pickup if it wasn't for all this. Never serious. I'm never serious. Because even if you built it up perfect, though, here's the thing: you just be bored with it eventually.
Yeah,
eventually, like selling it. Let's screw it.
Yeah, that's why I was like, man, I should probably get diagnosed with ADHD because I've just like stopped doing hobbies because like I'm not gonna follow through with it. I'm gonna get bored. I'm gonna hit a point that I can't get past, and I don't have enough money, help, or time to get over it, and then it'll just be abandoned. And then so I was like,
yeah. That's why I got into model building because it doesn't matter. What am I out? I've walked away from $70 models. It's like I'm done with this. This is just off. And you know what? I'm out $70. Whatever my time is, I'm not out $35,000. And where are we going to store this damn thing? I just pitch it into the dumpster. I've also become a lot more discerning in what I build. I don't have like a pie in the sky ideas like I'm going to make the ultimate anything. It's like, no, I'm going to do what makes me happy. Because I used to love like I want to make super dense full interior tank models and stuff. I will never do another full interior ever again. I will not spend the $460 they want for one. It's like, no, I can do the same thing for $120 and no one's going to see the inside.
So yeah, when you have a full interior tank, is that just for your own purposes, or is there ways to like dismantle it so you can see inside?
Oh, I would set it up so it can be dismantled.
Okay.
because I did wow the guys at the one meeting. It's like that's because it was a 1/16 scale Panther, and this was one that was this was one of the two Hobby Boss ones that were very well made, because some of those interior exterior tanks, you put them together and then they don't fit together right because the pieces weren't exactly, I don't know, there's always something you got to shave or trim and then it doesn't look right. This one went together flawlessly, and I was like, yeah, this looks pretty, but I didn't have any of the hatches open. This thing looks cool. And I was like, yeah, watch this. And I just pulled the turret off, because the way they designed it, the turret was a basket for everything and you could just set it down. And I was like, yeah, look inside there. And you could look inside the turret, and I'd painted it all. I worked on this thing for 9 months, and it does look really cool, but I'll never do another. Because I kept being asked, like, when are you going to be done with that? It's like, I don't know. And when I say worked on it for 9 months, I don't mean casual. I mean, every weekend I was in here painting something, doing something, and it's like, I'm not doing that again. That was not fun. I mean, it's amazing. It still sits here behind me. The exterior paint is not, unfortunately, that is not like a contest winning the exterior paint. The interior paint is, but it's like I didn't do a good enough job on the exterior, but I did learn a lot. And when it came time to do the T-34, I actually figured it out. It's like, oh, okay, now I know how to do this. Because with the Russian stuff, it's easy. The interior, you paint all that stuff and then just spray oil all over it. And it's like, that's how those tanks looked in real life, because they were not, they didn't have the precision that the German stuff did, because the Russians were fighting for their lives. And the Germans were fighting for whatever the hell they believed they were doing at that time.
The future.
Yeah, some kind of dark future that they imagined that was completely unsustainable and kind of stupid. I think if we understood DNA in the 1940s as well as we do now, a lot of that Nazi like racial purity stuff would have got knocked off its post. It's like,
I don't know, man. People are still trying to bring phrenology back because it's like, yeah, if we go by these narrow methods, then suddenly, like we can now judge things solely on race, and then we're ahead again.
Yeah. Well, when you take genetic tests, you find out like, oh, we're all just this huge hodge. And maybe in America that's a thing, but it's just you're such a hodgepodge of people.
Yeah.
It's like, who can claim the purity of anything?
Yeah.
Like, it's but yeah, that didn't seem like a winning philosophy. And I don't think they actually cared about that. I think they just cared about power. That was just the corridor they walked down. But certainly put a lot of brain power into fighting a war they had no chance of winning.
I don't know. I guess we can keep going, but I don't know if I have anything else on my mind. Although I really wanted to talk about Alan Wake, but I probably forgot everything about Alan Wake. But Nathan, you should probably watch somebody play through Alan Wake too. So.
Alan Wake 2?
Yeah.
I will try to do that for the next show.
I guess I did play through Control again. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's the same people that made that.
Oh, okay.
And I almost got inspired to write again, but then I stopped. Just stopped the hobby right there.
Strangle that baby in the crib.
Which is sad, because it's like I enjoy writing, but I don't, because I know it's not going anywhere, so I just don't do anything with it. So. And I don't have an editorial process to fix things, so it's like, yeah, well, I guess it stops at the idea stage. So.
And I'm functionally illiterate, so.
But you can read and comprehend better than me, so that's always good.
I've read a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been accused. It's been explained to me. It's like I don't have much of an imagination, really. So it's like, well, okay, that's why reading makes sense to me, because it's just aggregating facts.
Do you know the Netflix show I Think You Should Leave?
No.
Oh, okay. You might like that. It's really irreverent humor. It's a show where it has the whole sloppy steaks thing. I'm not sure if you've heard of that or saw that.
Ah.
It's just a sketch show. It's incredibly weird. I think the best joke from the recent season is like, you know, that pay it forward thing where like, you know, you go through a drive through and somebody pays for the person behind them and then like they do the pay it forward chain.
Yeah.
So there's like a,
I always break those.
huh?
I always break those. Hey, someone bought your coffee. It's like, cool. Want? Oh, nothing. It's like, no, so everyone wants something. No, sir, that's not. All right, bye. But anyway.
Yeah, this guy pulls up and he buys like a coffee. He's like, "Yeah, I'll pay for the guy behind me." And there's like, and then the next guy pulls up and it's like, "Oh yeah, the guy in front of you paid for it. Looks like they're doing a pay it forward change." Meanwhile, the guy who is in front is like desperately trying to get back around to behind the guy to see if he'll do the pay it forward because he's like 45 tacos, 45 burgers. And then the guy gets out of the car and admonishes him. He's like, "I'm not paying for that." It's like, "You have to." But yeah, it's on Netflix, so you got that, so you can see that. There's three seasons. It's easy to watch. You'll forget half of it, and some of it will haunt you forever. So yeah, it's a good show.
I have watched the Fallout show. I watched like 3 episodes of that so far.
Are you enjoying that? So
Yeah, it's weird. I like it.
Well, I don't know how much you've engaged in the Fallout universe before.
My son's really into it, so it's something he tells me about. I get a post-watch briefing. It's like, okay, son, explain exactly what's going on here.
I mean, it's just a post-apocalyptic, world where people live underground. Like, you're pretty familiar. That's pretty familiar science fiction stuff.
Yeah.
There's only stuff that's like kind of specific to the games where it's like you get more out of it. Like when you, there's a lot of references being made to all the game, but those are always big games. Like even when they're on PC and it was like the top-down stuff, they were huge lore games with lots of dialogue and everything had a history to it. I don't know the time period that everything is going on. There's also like things are up in the air with what New Vegas is, which I don't think anything pops up here until like the very last episode, but like you wouldn't know what that is anyway. But there's some contention with the New Vegas stuff because that was done by a different developer, and so sometimes Bethesda likes to pretend that it's not canon, and then other people are like, "No, that was the best one you made." So, and they're like, "Yeah, but we didn't make it, so we don't like it." And I've attempted to play it several times, but it's made by Obsidian, so it crashes all the time. But story-wise, it was good. They had like the Roman Legion. Some people that took up that kind of just like the aesthetics to it, and then made a whole like, culture around it. There's a bunch of robots over the place, and of course you have New Vegas, which is like the shining bright spot in America. It's like, oh, it's a city that works. It's in Vegas. Like, who would have thought? But yeah, the stuff with the ghoul, that stuff's really good. How that character develops over time, because like it starts out, it's like, oh, this guy's kind of like a down on his luck actor who's apparently a communist. And then the bombs go off, and then next time you see him, he's just this relentless, ever living ghoul who doesn't care whatsoever, and like has no ties to anybody, and will kill anyone or do anything to get what he wants. And you're like, what does he want? It's like, I don't know. I guess some more vials and you'll find out he's looking for his family. But then what you find out about his family is like crazy. We're like, well, they're good people, aren't they? It's like, well, hold on. But of course, Walter Goggins like pretty much great and everything. So
yeah, it was good to see Kyle MacLachlan back.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of surprise people that show up. I wasn't expecting. There's like the one guy in the armor. Have you got to the Brotherhood episode yet?
I know the one guy's in armor, yeah.
Okay. 'Cause it's,
And the guy died. He let him die so he could take his armor.
yeah, okay, you got to that one, yeah. That was good. Yeah, I like when he like attacks the bear at first, and then he just like slowly runs away. Fuck. Uh, but it is good that it has a sense of humor, and as long as they keep that, I'll be fine with whatever Jonathan Nolan's doing. Because there is times where it's like, oh, he's just like revisiting Westworld with this, isn't he? But there are times they're very slavish to the lore of Fallout that I was not expecting. Like I thought they were just going to use this as a stepping stone to do their own sci-fi stuff, but they're very close to what's in the video game. So
Well, that's good. So Anthony Hopkins isn't going to show up at the end and say, "Well, this is all a simulation."
What did somebody said they're trying to finish the last season for that fucking thing?
Well, they say they want to,
Oh,
but
okay.
no one
wants to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they got a greenlit for season 2 of Fallout, but it's going to take them like 2 years to make it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no way they're fucking coming back to Westworld unless they just get a completely different cast. Which by the end of Westworld would actually make sense, but by then I wouldn't really care unless they come up with a character that's just as compelling as the man in the black hat. Which is basically what the ghoul is, but
That show stopped being interesting after a while.
pretty much the second season.
Yeah, I mean the third season was kind of.
I thought the third season rebounded things because it brought new characters and perspective in, but then it quickly got up its own ass, and then the last season is just basically unwatchable.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does, but it's.
Yeah, it all fits together if you care, and I don't. So.
I scrubbed watched like the last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I was like, they can't be. Are they going to do like a cliffhanger or what? What are they doing? This doesn't make any sense. But the first season was amazing.
Yes.
That's all.
Can't take that first season away. So.
Yeah, just like True Detective, you can't take the first season away.
There's only one season.
Yeah, it's the only one that matters.
Yeah. Oh, I hear that new one. I hear there's interesting stuff to it, but it seems people like. It seems like the second season is so bad that it's like to have any other valid season of True Detective, it just has to reach the highs of the first season. So that's just never going to happen. So.
Well, the third season wasn't terrible.
Yeah, that's what I hear. But
it had a great set of actors in it because it was Brad Dourif and the guy I can never pronounce his name. But yeah, they were great. The story wasn't as strong. It was almost a kind of a lower budget repeat of True Detective season 1.
Yeah.
Without the weird lore and world building that went on.
Is that Mahershala Ali?
Something like that. Is that how you say it? Mahershala?
I think.
Okay, I could never figure that one out. Yeah, he's in everything now.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the new Blade, but that got pushed back like 500 times. So.
Yeah.
Oh, did you see the trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yeah, I saw the Red Band trailer.
Oh, okay. That's probably the same one because I remember there was a bunch of swearing in it, so it's probably the same one. So.
Yeah.
That looks fun. People are putting a lot of hopes in that as to reviving the Marvel universe, but we'll see what happens. So.
Yeah.
Well, they have the new show on Disney Plus, which is X-Men 97, which is acting like what if the X-Men cartoon had an additional season and then we just acted like nothing happened and just made it, which is pretty good. Yeah. Oh, that's always the. Should we end it now, Nathan?
Yeah, we probably should.
We don't have the usual like. We watched a movie this week.
This is just round up events.
Yeah. like to get together every once in a while and try to talk about things that other than just a movie and see if we can make it entertaining. It's up to you
Yeah.
if we succeed or not, and maybe we didn't.
Yeah, I
Although-
don't know. I'm excited.
although-
I'm coming off of like almost feels like a 6-month ass kicking.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, another one I guess I want to talk about. There's another show on Netflix called Wrestlers, which is just they follow Ohio Valley Wrestling School around, and I'll tell you it's a pretty amazing look at independent wrestling. So
okay.
I suggest that.
Wrestlers on Netflix
Yeah.
or HBO Max?
Netflix.
Netflix.
A lot of wrestling stuff out there, so that's a good one. Because it's just
All right.
crazy characters and stuff like that. And I mean, I remember like last podcast for Verhoeven Effect, I said I want to talk about Captain Fall, but I didn't follow up on it and actually like watch the rest of the season and tell you about it. But yeah, it's another fucking weird adult animated Netflix show that I don't know. Did you even like take a glance at it since when I talked about
Yeah, I did actually. I did look at it.
it?
It reminds me of I'm trying to think of what that's like because it's so weird. I got some it's almost like Aqua Teen Hunger Force vibes. Like, oh, these characters are so ridiculous and naive.
But
at
it gets,
the same.
but it takes such a sudden turn every once in a while. Like it starts out as like goofy cartoon, and then it just gets really serious and like, yeah, but human trafficking, drugs, we're destroying the inner cities, just fucked up stuff out of nowhere. It's like, wow, what the? Are we saying something here? I don't know, because I don't know if the cartoon's just bad, or if it's. Or if they're doing something interesting and I'm just not, I don't have the right pair of eyes to see it yet or something like that. Because I think it's just bad, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's again. It reminded me of. It reminded me of. Like I said, I got some like Adult Swim vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Early Adult Swims.
Yeah.
And it's like, but this develops and it goes in these strange directions. And yeah, I don't know. It is hard to say where it's going sometimes because I watched 2 of them. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, this. Oh.
Yeah, I think the next one of the next 2 episodes I think is when you get to the Swingers episode, which is just like a completely different side story with new characters and then just comes back to like bad boner pills. But yeah, it's some in that second episode. Did they do the thing in the second episode where they try to like build like a human museum or zoo in like the ship, and then like they end up giving like these indigenous natives like just horrible diseases, and they're just like dying of like diseases they never like encountered before. Was that in the second episode, or is that like up and coming?
I don't remember that one.
That might be up and coming then. Yeah, that one's horrible. There's like one where they basically like kill like an entire navy of like a small island, and it's like incredibly violent. It's like basically like RoboCop, or you know, like somebody gets split in half and they're trying to grab their organs and stuff like that. You know, that fun stuff. And this quaint little cartoon about a captain who's just trying his best. Well, that's the other like thing is that like, you know, he's supposed to be like, I come from this long lineage of captains, and then he just sucks at everything. It's like, why am I supposed to root for him? Because he's nice, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because he seems like a very sincere guy.
Yeah. Oh, anyways. Yeah, we'll come back in 6 months and I'll report back on that. So.
Yeah, we'll watch that sometime between now and then. All right, so this week for the American, this 6 months.
Yeah.
For the American Greed Factory podcast, I'm Nathan.
Conlon. Goodbye, America.